I was a manic depressant. I was at my lowest ebb. I really didn't feel like I was loved, and because I didn't feel loved, I felt useless.
Did you know Marvin Gaye, the voice that brought the world What's Going On, died with a dark secret buried deep in his soul? His music changed lives, his voice could stop time, but behind that magic was a man tormented by secrets no one saw coming.
It's a result of 3 or 4 things. One thing was I was undergoing 2 divorces at the same time, which can be rather traumatic by itself. And then I was in bankruptcy. All my property had been confiscated, and there was a lot of money and a lot of property, millions of dollars, and that was rough.
Marvin Gaye was born on April 2, 1939, in Washington, D.C., in a rough part of town known as Simple City. Life wasn't easy there. Poverty was everywhere, and violence was a regular part of the neighborhood, but Marvin's biggest struggle wasn't outside his home. It was inside. His father, Marvin Gaye Sr., was a strict Pentecostal preacher who believed discipline meant pain. While other kids ran free in the streets, Marvin lived under the constant threat of beatings. His father wasn't just strict, he was unpredictable, controlling, and emotionally cold. Marvin later admitted he feared his father more than anyone else in the world. But in the middle of that chaos, Marvin found one safe place: music. His earliest memories of joy were in church, standing next to his father, singing hymns. Despite the abuse, Marvin deeply respected his father's musical talent. The two would often sing together, and young Marvin learned to harmonize by mimicking gospel quartets. His voice stood out even then, soft yet powerful. It was clear early on that Marvin had something special. He joined his high school glee club and sang with local doo-wop groups, slowly building confidence. Singing was his escape. It gave him a sense of freedom he never had at home. But no matter how far music took him, that heavy presence of his father loomed in the background. Even when he joined the Air Force as a teenager, trying to find independence, he couldn't escape the emotional scars. He clashed with authority, eventually faked mental illness, and was discharged. It wasn't long after that Marvin dove fully into music. Marvin's journey to stardom began when he joined a group called the Marquis. That connection eventually brought him into the orbit of Harvey Fuqua, who took Marvin under his wing and helped him break into the music industry. By 1961, Marvin had signed with Motown, working first as a session drummer before stepping up to the microphone himself. His early solo hits like Stubborn Kind of Fellow, Hitchhike, and Pride and Joy quickly made waves. And then came What's Going On, a song that captured the soul of a generation. With its themes of war, injustice, and compassion, Marvin didn't just sing songs, he sparked conversations. He became a legend. His voice was everywhere, his name in every household. But with success came more pressure, and while Marvin smiled through interviews and accepted awards, inside he was falling apart. The applause never filled the emptiness left by his childhood pain. He struggled with anxiety, drug use, and deep depression. Fame amplified his insecurities instead of curing them, and back at home, things were getting worse. His father never celebrated Marvin's success. In fact, he seemed jealous of it. Marvin once said that his father viewed him as a rival, not a son. The more Marvin achieved, the more distant and resentful his father became. It wasn't just tension, it was quiet hostility that had been building for years. Marvin tried to maintain distance, but family ties kept pulling him back. He would often give his parents money, buy them homes, and try to support them, but there was no warmth in return. His relationship with his father stayed strained and cold. Behind closed doors, Marvin's personal life was unraveling too. His marriage was failing, drug habits deepened, and his emotional health was hanging by a thread. On the outside, he was a polished soul icon, but on the inside, Marvin was still that scared boy from Simple City, trying to earn love from a father who never gave it, and the deeper he went into that emotional spiral, the closer he got to the breaking point.
Love is misery. Love is miserable. I think I'll be a bachelor and I'll swing, and I won't fall in love. I'll just be loveful, be kind and good, and have fun. I don't feel like being miserable.
Marvin Gaye's personal life was as complicated as his music was beautiful. One of the most tangled and painful chapters came from his relationship with Anna Gordy, sister of Motown founder Berry Gordy. They married in 1963, but the union was far from simple. There was a 17-year age gap between them, and they had major differences in temperament and expectations from the start. Still, Marvin admired Anna's strength and intellect. She had already built a name for herself in the music business, and Marvin respected that. But behind closed doors, their marriage was filled with fights, jealousy, and emotional distance. One of the biggest struggles they faced was fertility. Anna wanted children, but years passed without success. The pressure and disappointment only deepened the cracks already forming in their marriage. Then came the twist that changed everything. In 1966, Marvin and Anna announced the adoption of a baby boy, Marvin Gaye III. But as years passed, rumors swirled, and eventually the truth emerged. The child was actually Marvin's biological son, but not with Anna. The boy's mother was Anna's niece, Denise Gordy, who was just 16 years old at the time of the birth. Marvin was 26. This secret didn't come out publicly until much later, but people close to the family knew. Marvin never publicly admitted it, but the timeline and the family's silence said enough. Denise had allegedly been asked or pressured to carry the child and hand him over to Anna and Marvin to raise. It was a move meant to protect reputations and avoid scandal, especially given the age difference and the complex family dynamics. The whole situation was painful and messy. It raised questions about consent, power, and family betrayal, and it haunted Marvin for the rest of his life. In his later years, he hinted at the truth but never fully opened up. This secret, buried under decades of silence, became one of the heaviest things he carried. It wasn't just gossip, it was a truth that could have wrecked his career and led to serious legal consequences. Trying to keep that part of his life hidden only made Marvin more isolated. The lies, the guilt, and the confusion created a storm in his heart that never cleared. And while that scandal stayed mostly out of the public eye during his lifetime, its shadow followed him everywhere.
I'm not particularly fond of money, if that's what you're asking me. It's not my first prerequisite, you know.
As Marvin tried to manage the chaos of his personal life, tragedy struck hard. His duet partner and close friend, Tammy Terrell, collapsed into his arms on stage in 1967. She had a brain tumor and passed away just a few years later in 1970. Her death devastated Marvin. They had a deep bond, one that went beyond music. Losing her sent him into a deep depression. He withdrew from public life for a while. The confident, charismatic singer disappeared. In his place was a man haunted by loss and heartbreak. To cope, Marvin turned to drugs. Cocaine became his escape. Then came PCP. At the same time, he became obsessed with religion and scripture, often swinging between spiritual awakenings and total despair. He was caught in a cycle of self-destruction, trying to find peace in two very different worlds. By 1983, things had gotten worse. Marvin's mental health had collapsed, his financial problems were growing, his music career was slowing down, and he was battling with his father again, who had moved in with him and his mother in Los Angeles. Marvin tried to end his life twice that year, once by taking a large amount of cocaine, another time by attempting to jump out of a moving vehicle. Both times he survived, but his emotional pain didn't go away. He was drowning, but no one really knew how deep the water was. His friends, fans, and even family didn't realize just how bad things had gotten. On the outside, Marvin still had that soulful charm, but inside he was breaking, piece by piece, and the final blow was just around the corner.
Music has gone through how many phases, if you would group it?
Well, I don't know how many phases my music's gone through. I write my music according to my lifestyle. If I'm sad, I write sad music. If I'm being divorced, I write divorce albums. If I'm sexy, if I feel hot or horny or something, I'll write a horny album.
After hitting rock bottom in the early 1980s, Marvin Gaye made a decision that surprised many. He left the United States and moved to Belgium. It wasn't just a change of scenery. Marvin was trying to escape the drugs, the debt collectors, and the chaos that followed him everywhere in America. He needed a reset. And for a while, it seemed like he found peace. While living in Ostend, Belgium, Marvin started focusing again again on music and his health. He kept a low profile, spent time with supportive friends, and even began working out. It was in this quiet European town that he recorded S3xual Healing. The track marked his big comeback. It was smooth, powerful, and completely different from the funk and social messages he was known for. The song became a global hit. He won 2 Grammy Awards for it. Radio stations couldn't stop playing it. Marvin was back, or at least that's what it looked like on the surface. But the success of S3xual Healing didn't erase what he was running from. After returning to the US in 1983, all the demons he left behind came rushing back. The drug use picked up again, his financial problems were still waiting for him, and mentally he was hanging by a thread. To make things worse, his relationship with Motown, his original musical home, completely broke down. The label released an album of his without his permission, and Marvin saw it as a betrayal. For someone as emotionally sensitive as he was, that hit hard. He felt like he had lost control over his own art, and the pain pushed him deeper into isolation. Another mental breakdown followed. He was trying so hard to rebuild, but nothing around him felt stable. Not his career, not his mind, and especially not his home. Because living under the same roof again was the one person he feared most. His father. It all came to a head on April 5th, 1984. Easter Sunday, Marvin and his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., had a long and violent history. The relationship was built on fear, not love. His father had beaten him as a child, belittled him as a man, and never once supported his success. On that tragic day, Marvin stepped into a family argument between his father and mother. Things escalated fast. Heated words turned into a physical confrontation. Moments later, Marvin's father walked into his son's room with a revolver, one Marvin had actually bought for him months earlier, and shot him in the chest. Marvin Gaye just one day before his 45th birthday. The world was stunned. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. But behind the headlines and candlelight vigils was a truth that never got its moment. Marvin spent his life looking for peace. He searched for it in music, in love, in drugs, in God, but it always stayed just out of reach, and he passed away with the weight of secrets he never got to unload. The truth about his son, Marvin III, the relationship with Denise Gordy, the trauma from his father, the inner struggles he buried under melodies and lyrics. These weren't just dark moments, they were scars that shaped everything Marvin ever sang. So why did Marvin stay silent? Was it guilt over what happened with Denise? Shame over the choices he made? Or was he simply afraid that the truth would ruin the image the world had built of him? Maybe it was all of that. Maybe it was something deeper we'll never fully understand.